division. Dallas missed out on their chance to stay in the home field advantage conversation with their loss last week. Eagles have won the last 2 games in this series at home. I can't help but feel like these teams are both going to play really hard in the first half and give it all they got. But in the second half, you might see some guys getting some rest, some guys getting pulled. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but regardless, I do like Dallas here in this one, and I think they get the win. The Bears on Sunday, the first of the early games, they're on the road at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings 3.5-point favorites at home. Kirk Cousins could be back for this one. Remember, he's been on the COVID list. The Bears, meanwhile, it might be Andy Dalton. It might be Nick Foles. Might be Justin Fields. We'll have to see. This could also be the last game for either Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer or Bears coach Matt Nagy. Could be the last game for both of them. Maybe they're both back next year. Who knows? Been a disappointing season for both these teams, but I think the Vikings head into the offseason with the win. I do like Minnesota here. Panthers on the road. They visit Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Buccaneers 9.5-point favorites. They just want to get back out on the field and stop having to answer questions about Antonio Brown. They also want to make sure they're healthy going into the postseason. I wouldn't be surprised to see Brady play a little in this one. I also won't be surprised if he plays very little in this one. I think if you're Tampa Bay, you don't want to head into the postseason with a loss, but honestly, it doesn't matter. And you'd much rather have a healthy Tom Brady, a healthy Gronk, healthy Mike Evans, on and on and on and on. I'd be surprised if anybody of any name value played too terribly long. But you might see Brady and company for a series or two anyway. Regardless, the Panthers are awful. And that's the bigger deal here. I apologize for getting off track. You just want to know who I think is going to win the game. It ain't the Carolina Panthers. They've got problems. Doesn't matter who winds up playing and for how long for Tampa. I think the Buccaneers win this one. Packers 11.5-point favorites at Detroit. I'd be willing to bet you almost anything that come game time, this line will not be 11 points. It hasn't been announced yet, but does anybody really expect Aaron Rodgers to play much, if at all, on Sunday? No. He's been playing with the toe injury, don't forget, for several weeks now. You've got home field locked up, which means you've got a bye next week. So you don't play Rodgers this week. He gets 2 full weeks off, at least from games, and I'm sure very limited practicing, to rest that toe up. You couldn't draw that up any better if you're the Green Bay Packers. I can't imagine for a second that they play him much, if at all, against the Lions. So I do think that line changes in that one. Here's the bottom line. I could be quarterbacking the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, and I could be throwing to second and third string wide receivers and handing the ball to third and fourth string running backs and playing opposite a defense that's playing second and third string guys, and I could still engineer the Packers to a win against the Lions. So take Green Bay here. Colts, they need a win at the Jaguars to ensure a playoff spot on Sunday. Colts come in 15.5-point favorites. Here's the NFL doomsday scenario, at least for building up drama and intrigue on Sunday. The assumption is Colts win, and then the Sunday night game with the Raiders and the Chargers, that becomes a play-in game. You win, you're in. How about this? If the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Colts, it would be possible for there to be no intrigue going into the Sunday night game, depending on how things play out, because with the Jaguars win over Indy, if we were to get a tie in the Raiders-Chargers game, both Vegas and LA would be in the playoffs. Now, I don't necessarily think for a second that either of these teams would say, we could play each other hard, but one of us is going to miss out on the playoffs. Or we could just, take a bunch of knees and end this one at a tie. I don't think that happens for a second. But if the Jaguars were to win, and I don't think that happens anyway. That's why, look, I'm amused by this subject, but I'm not buying into any of it because I don't think we get to the Sunday night game and have to question or wonder what we're going to see as far as effort from both teams, because I think the Colts easily beat the Jacksonville Jaguars here. But it is fun to speculate. It is fun to play around, and that would be a scenario that the NFL certainly does not want to see. All that crap being said, the Colts are going to win here. They just are. Washington football team, 6.5-point favorites at the Giants. Giants are terrible. This could be Joe Judge's final game as head coach in New York. Washington, not much better, but they are better. Giants have only scored 13 points one time in the last 7 weeks. Washington, with all their struggles, they're still better than the Giants. Take the football team here. The Texans with the win at Houston can lock up the top seed in the AFC. Tennessee, a 10.5-point favorite here. Again, Derrick Henry has been designated to return from the injury list. I don't know that we'll see him on Sunday, though, and I don't know that we need to either. I think Tennessee wins this one regardless, and they lock up the top spot in the AFC. Steelers on the road at the Ravens. Playoff implications here for both these teams, although they're fairly slight, especially in the case of Pittsburgh. Could be Ben Roethlisberger's last NFL game ever. Might be the first time we've seen Lamar Jackson in several weeks. We'll have to see how this plays out, but a lot on the line for both these teams. I think the Ravens are the better team. I don't know if they're the better team if there's no Lamar Jackson, though. This one's got, they're at home. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to take the Steelers here, and we'll see if this winds up being Roethlisberger's last game or not. I have a feeling it is, regardless of the outcome of this one, but I'll take the Steelers here. Bengals on the road, they visit Cleveland. They may as well be at home. There's no home field advantage for the Browns, right? Browns, though, are 3-point favorites, which makes sense, even with no Baker Mayfield. Mayfield missing this week's game. He's getting ready for surgery. Cincinnati, after clinching the North last week, we already know Joe Burrow's not going to play. Regardless of what they were going to do with Joe Mixon, he's most likely out now anyway because of being put on the COVID list. So since he's going to be resting a lot of guys here, Browns probably do win this one. It doesn't matter, though. On to the late games. We'll start in L.A. The Rams, 5.5-point favorites playing host to the 49ers. The Niners need this one to secure a playoff spot. Rams need this one to ensure they win the NFC West. We don't know what's going on with the Niners. Garoppolo has been back at practice this week, though he's been very limited. He could be back under center on Sunday. Maybe it's Trey Lance. Don't know, but with the Rams still needing this win and not being able to go into cruise control mode, I think they're out there hard. I think they're giving it all they got. And as much as I've liked the Niners this season, I like the Rams to get the win. The Patriots, they are on the road. They go to the Miami Dolphins, New England, a 5.5-point favorite on the road. And again, for the Patriots, you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to have injuries. You'd like to have the win, though. Mac Jones, I think he and the Patriots keep it rolling here. Certainly the Dolphins have been red hot before losing last week, but with nothing left to play for the Dolphins except for pride, I do like the Patriots here. The Saints, they're on the road as 4.5-point favorites at the Falcons. And again, Saints need a win here, which I think is doable. They also need the Niners to lose, which is very possible, to back their way into the postseason. Taysom Hill was back at quarterback. He kind of settled in as much as you can settle in an ugly game against the Panthers last week. And look, the Falcons have had a lot of struggles this year. Saints need this one. The Falcons don't. I do like New Orleans to get the win, and then we'll see what happens with the 49ers and if the Saints can backdoor their way in. But I do like New Orleans here. Jets on the road. They visit the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo at home, 17-point favorites, and they do need a win to clinch the AFC East. So you assume, at least in the early parts of this game, it could get out of hand, right? They are playing the Jets after all. But at least early on, you're going to see Josh Allen. You're going to see everybody here Buffalo's not going to be resting people, at least early on. Again, the Jets, not a good football team. Buffalo wins this one easy. They lock up the AFC East, and maybe by early in the third quarter, you're starting to rest some guys and get ready for the playoffs. The Cardinals, they are home to the Seahawks. Arizona, a 6.5-point favorite. They need a Rams loss and then a victory over Seattle to win the NFC West. And while all that's doable, when things aren't all in your control, there's only so much you can do. Regardless, and more importantly, the Cardinals seemingly got back on track last week with a big win over the Cowboys. They had struggled as of late. Seahawks has been a disappointing season. They're limping to the finish line. Cardinals need this one for momentum and the possibility to win the division. I do like Arizona in this one. The Sunday night game, and more likely than not, a win-in-your-end situation as the Chargers visit the Raiders. These teams are rivals, right? 4 of the last 5 meetings have been one-score games. Remember, Justin Herbert led the Chargers down the field for a 32-27 win over the Raiders the last time they were in Vegas. Raiders could get Darren Waller back. They may not. This will be interesting. I've written the Raiders off a couple of times this season. I didn't buy into them early despite a good start. The whole situation with John Gruden, the situation with DWIs, plural, and vehicular homicides and things like that. This team just looked done, dead, didn't care anymore at times. But to their credit, they fought, they've scratched, they've clawed, and a win, and they're in on Sunday night. That being said, I just feel much better about this Chargers team, despite their struggles, despite opportunities to put themselves in a much better position over the last few weeks that they haven't always been able to capitalize on. I just feel better about them, and I think LA on the road finds a way to get the win. I will take the Chargers in this one. All right, that's going to do it. We'll see how Week 18 plays out. Enjoy all your football watching. If your team's still alive for a playoff spot, I certainly hope they get in because I know mine isn't. So good luck to you. Enjoy all the games. Our next episode will drop on Monday. We'll look back at Week 18. We will get you ready for the playoffs. We'll look at those wild card weekend games. We'll get you the latest news. We'll get you the latest notes. And you know what? We'll start figuring out the whole coaching carousel because, come Monday, we're probably going to start seeing some pink slips being handed out. So Monday should be a really fun episode. We'll talk to you then. Don't forget, you can always reach out to us. Find us on Twitter at TalkingProFB. You can get me on Twitter at RealMikeCarlyle. Find us on the email. You can reach out talkingprofb@gmail.com. We're out of time. We will talk to you on Monday for our next edition of Talking Pro Football here on the After Hours Podcast Network.
Love combat sports? I have a website for you, cageminds.com. That's CAGEDMINDS.com. Fight news from around the world, in-depth interviews, live event coverage. Covering combat sports for over a decade. Established in April 2011. That's cageminds.com.